everyone, my name is Adi Emilwadimlade Debra, the creator of Compass 7.0, and in this video we're going to talk about everything you need to know to get your full marks in NECO Practical and Physical Geography. So in NECO Practical Physical Geography, this is an area that many people struggle with, and one of the main reasons being that NECO doesn't have its own past question booklets like WAEC. But don't worry at all. Those of you who may have been following my videos have seen that I've started a past question series for WAEC practical corrections, and this video will mark the very first video in the NECO practical correction series. So for any exam, always read your question, and at the beginning of the practical geography, this is the first thing you're going to see. Answer question 1 and any other 3. And this means that question 1 is compulsory and you have to answer any other 3 questions of your choice. So in total, we have 8 questions, including question 1, the compulsory one. So that means that you can pick question 1 and 3 other questions from the remaining 7. NECO doesn't have its own syllabus like WAEC that you can find online, but the past questions in NECO follow a particular pattern, which we are going to discuss in this video. Before that, let me just mention the marks that each question carries. So question 1 carries 22 marks, while the remaining questions carry 16 marks each. And so that means that the total score carried by paper 1, element of practical and physical geography, is 70 marks. And that's a very big number. And I assure you that by the end of this video, once you understand the trend, you'll be able to get your full marks in NECO Practical. The name of the required textbook for geography is Essential Geography for Senior Secondary Schools, and this is where your questions will come from. So make sure you read and understand the following topics we are going to discuss in this video. And then for all the topics we're going to talk about, they have chapters in the textbook which I'll be making reference to. Now, I mentioned earlier that there are 8 questions in total, and the wonderful thing is that all these 8 questions consistently have been coming from the exact same topics. So that means that for question 2, it will always be from the same topic every year. It's not random. So basically, once you understand the trend, you're going to have your own area of concentration. And this is applicable to every question except one, and you'll see why in a bit. So now we're going to be starting with question 2. We'll leave the compulsory one for last. Question 2 will almost always come from Earth rotation and revolution, or latitude and longitude. Under these topics, you could be asked the difference between rotation and revolution of the Earth, an example being that the Earth rotates 360 degrees in a day, but it revolves around the sun in a year. And rotation will cause day and night, as well as sunrise and sunset, while revolution determines a year and seasons. So try to know at least 4 effects of each and be able to explain them. Effect of rotation and revolution on the Earth. Difference between equinox and solstice. For the name equinox, it means equal day and night, and you need to know when these dates occur for explanation purposes as well as for objectives, and the dates are given in the textbook that we mentioned, Essential Geography, and take note of the diagram there too in case you're asked to draw with the aid of a diagram. And most importantly, latitude and longitude. Under this, you need to know the difference between both of them and also know that they can be called parallels and meridians respectively. In your textbook, they both have their own respective tables of differences. That is, there's a table for the difference between latitude and longitude and a table for the difference between parallels and meridians, even though the names can be used interchangeably. So even though their differences are practically the same, take note of the ones that aren't similar so that in case you're asked in exam, you don't make the mistake of writing the wrong difference under the wrong heading. And you also need to know the calculations under latitude and longitude. I'll be making a video on this soon to properly explain it, since I know it's an area that many students find challenging. So now let's look at previous years, 2021, 2022, 2023. And as you can see, they are all related to rotation and revolution and latitude and longitude. In 2022, they even gave you some of the effects and asked you to explain them. So that means you need to make sure you are conversant with them. As you can see, explain the following in relations to the Earth revolution: changes in altitude of the midday sun, effects of seasonal changes on temperature, and varying length of day and night. In the textbook, this already given effects with explanations under them. So you need to make sure you understand the effects so you'll be able to explain it when you are just giving the heading. But in 2024, they didn't follow that pattern. Instead, the question came from Earth structure. So coincidentally, Earth structure is actually the next chapter in the textbook after Earth rotation and revolution and latitude and longitude. But don't worry, other questions follow the same pattern of previous years. So let's move on to the next question. Now question 3 is all about rocks. As you can see, we have three major types of rocks: igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, and metamorphic rocks. So here they can ask you about the characteristics of the rocks. So you should try to know at least 5 or 6 in case you are not asked to mention a specific number. But usually the mark that the question carries will guide you. If you look beside it, like now we've told you before that each question apart from one carries 16 marks. So these subsections B, C, maybe I, the respective marks will be written whether it's 2 marks, 4 marks. So if it's 4 marks or 6 marks, that will guide you to know how many differences or characteristics, sorry, that you have to write. They can also ask you to list examples and also describe the mode of formation. So now let's look at some past questions. So now you can see we have three different years: 2021, 2022, 2024. And you can see in this case 2024 followed the pattern of rocks, but now 2023 decided to fall out of line. With a well-labeled diagram, describe the mode of formation of any two of the following mountains. So in the case of 2023, the question came from mountains. And this is also the next chapter after rocks in the textbook. So far for questions 2 and 3, the years that don't follow the trend usually come out from the next topic or the next chapter in the textbook. So now you can see that we are gradually building our blueprint to help us navigate through the NECO Practical Geography effortlessly and get our full marks. For question 4, it can either be on weather or climate, or it could even be asked on both of them. Most people use these words interchangeably, but they have different meanings, although they are related. They even have their own distinct chapters in the textbook. Weather is the atmospheric condition of a place over a short period of time, while climate is the average weather condition of a place over a long period. So under question 4, it could be asked a variety of questions, and most of them are usually under climate, as it's a very broad topic. It even has 2 chapters in the textbook. Firstly, you can be asked to describe the 3 different types of rainfall, and usually try to add a diagram even though the question doesn't specify, as this can add to your overall marks. And also make sure to know the other names of the different types of rainfall. You need to know that relief rainfall can also be known as orographic rainfall, and frontal rainfall can also be known as cyclonic, so that you don't get confused when the question just gives you one. Differences between weather and climate. This is an easy question, it's usually asked. Effect of weather and climate on various factors. They could ask the effects on maybe housing, transportation, agriculture, etc. Greek and Köppen classification of climates. This is another commonly tested question. Under this alone, you could be asked a variety of things. One of the things being the basis of classification. That is how Köppen's classification is based on temperature and rainfall, while the Greek classification is based only on temperature alone. And Köppen's classification can further be divided into subgroups that have different symbols like AF, that's A in capital letter, F in small letter, AW, BS, CW. All these symbols are in the textbooks as well as their explanations. So you could be asked for what they stand for in practical and even in objectives. So make sure you're conversant with them so that you can be prepared. Lapse rates. In your objectives, you usually come across 1 or 2 questions that have calculation based on this, especially in WAEC. So lapse rates is a temperature decrease by 6.5 degrees Celsius for every 1000 meter of ascent, and it simply means the rate at which the temperature decreases with an increase in altitude. So as you go high, the temperature decreases. So make sure you take note of all these things, and now let's see the trend in past questions. Now, this is a perfect example of a question on Köppen classification in 2021. We've already answered the question A, that state the factor on which Köppen classification is based. We've answered that as temperature and rainfall. And in C, we were asked to identify what these letters represent, and all of these are explained in the textbook. So always take note of your required textbook for your various subjects. As you can see, I've made reference to this textbook over and over, and I'm still going to keep making reference to it. So let's continue. 2022. As I said, state the differences between weather and climate, an easy question, usually asked, and then discuss the ways by which weather and climate influence animal husbandry or aviation. Now look at in both 2023 and 2024, they were asked questions on rainfall with the aid of a diagram. So please always take note of the diagrams for these three different types of rainfall. And as you can see in 2024, they gave them the particular type of rainfall to talk about, conventional and cyclonic. Now remember that I told you to take note of the other names of different types of rainfall. Remember that cyclonic is also known as frontal rainfall. So imagine that if somebody is only conversant with one of these names and they see the other one in the exam, the moment they see the question, they are going to be completely confused, and that can even destabilize them because in their mind they only have three different types of rainfall, not knowing that they have other names. So take note of these key things. So question 5 is based on Earth's internal and generational processes. And some of the key aspects of this question include, so for this group of questions, you need to always be prepared to draw diagrams. It's something that you won't escape if you want to do question 5. Take for instance the intrusive landforms of volcanicity. Those are those structures that you find that end with lith: batholith, laccolith, lopolith, facholith. You need to know how they are formed. There are different shapes. One that looks like a lens, you have another one that looks like a dome. And you need to be able to draw their diagrams. Even if it's not asked, things like this always add to your mark. Even for limestone region, we have the surface and the underground features, and it's also important to be able to know how to draw them. Structures like stalactites and stalagmites and how they join together to form limestone pillars and so on. The same for water table and springs. You need to know their mode of formation and be able to draw the associated diagrams. So looking at this 2021 question, we can see describe the aid of a well-labeled diagram, and all these are surface features of limestone region. And in this question, you can see that they mentioned karst topography. Just know that karst topography and limestone region are basically the same thing. They can be used interchangeably. So when you see it in exam, don't think they're talking about a strange thing. It's still the same limestone region they are familiar with. While in 2022, we have a question on weathering, which is one of the denudation processes. And in 2023 and 2024, the questions are based on weathering and volcanicity, where we are asked to describe once again with the aid of diagrams. So always take note of diagrams. And notice that for this one, question 5, and even question 4 that we just talked about on weather and climate, all the years, the past 4 years, conform to the same pattern. Question 6 is all about the Earth's external processes. We've already talked about internal processes before. Now this question 6 is about external processes. And the action of running water is one of the most tested aspects of this. And this is because it encompasses a lot of things, one of them being the stages of the river, the upper, middle, and lower stages. And each of these stages have their own unique features. The waterfall being a feature of the upper course of the river, the meander a feature of the middle, and deltas are features of the lower course of the river. So knowledge of this topic won't only help you answer question 6, but it's also going to help you in your mark book, whether it's objective or even question 1, as we are going to see in this practical geography. Now, as you can see in the years 2023 and 2024, these are questions under Earth's external processes based on the action of running water. They asked about the types of delta, which you just mentioned is a feature of the lower course of a river. While all these ones, so they're asking you to define river capture, river rejuvenation. River capture is also a feature of the upper course of a river along with waterfall that we mentioned earlier. So this chapter is in the textbook. You can read more on it. For 2022, you can see that we're asked to describe the development of the stage of the river with the aid of a diagram again. And then for 2021, we have a slight exception to the pattern because instead of following the trend of question 6, this question falls under the topic of Earth's internal processes. And if you've been paying attention, you remember that question 5 is about Earth's internal processes. So that's why I said it's a slight exception. The topic is not just a completely random one. And that means that for the year 2021, both questions 5 and 6 came from the same topic. For question 7, the main focus is environmental resources, some of which include vegetation, human resources, and the well-known mineral resources. For this question, it is important to know the definition of the term environmental resources because as you can see, it was asked in 2 years, 2022 and 2024. We also have renewable and non-renewable resources, which you should know about, as well as their examples. Question 8 is about GIS. GIS means Geographic Information Systems, and this is the main topic for question 8. In the textbook, there are about 4 chapters on GIS, but don't be afraid, they are all short chapters, just like 2 pages, except for the first chapter on GIS. The rest of them are about 2 pages. And out of the 4 chapters that you can find in your textbook, the most important ones are the ones on GIS data and application. While remote sensing is another branch of GIS, and it is also a chapter on its own, a very short one as well. Now let's move on to the compulsory question. Question 1 is the actual map work. And the reason I can't give you a topic for question 1 is that it's an integrative question. This is testing how well you can apply all your knowledge of map reading. And this is usually done by asking you to reduce a given map and insert some features on the new map. This will test your knowledge on map reduction and enlargement as well as map scale. And in the rare cases, they could even test you on cross profile, as we'll soon see. And after that, the B part of the question will usually ask you to describe the drainage or the relief of the map area, or how a particular factor is affecting the major settlement on the map. Now let's take 2 different years. So now looking at this question, from 1:50,000 to 1:100,000, that's the old map to the new scale outline that we're asked to draw, it's going to be a reduction by a factor of 2. Now recall from our video on map reduction and enlargement that an increase in the scale will do what to the size of the map? It will lead to a decrease in the size of the map because it's an inverse relationship. And now under the Roman numeral 3, under question B, BIII, the occupations of the people of the mapped area will depend on the features located in or around the settlement. So whether they are close to the sea and they will engage in occupations like farming, or maybe they are surrounded by vegetation and hence they could be farmers and so on. So for this question, we're asked to draw an annotated cross profile. And if by any chance you need to practice cross profile, you can watch the 2021 WASSCE video correction as it was properly explained since a similar question was asked. But the video correction on 2023 for NECO will be released soon. So in both 2021 and 2023, we are both asked to describe the drainage and relief of the mapped area as I mentioned before. And now this is the summary of everything we have discussed, the secret to NECO geography. So now you have the blueprint to ace your practical geography. I went into the exam with the mind of answering questions 2, 3, and 7. That's on earth rotation and evolution, rocks, and environmental resources, along with the compulsory one, and I did just that, and I got my A in NECO geography. And that brings us to the end of the video. So now that the NECO series is ongoing, I plan to have at least 4 correction videos of past years, that is from 2021 to 2024, before the next NECO exam. So if you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. If you have any topics in particular you want me to make videos on, type them out in the comment section. And also turn on your notifications so you'll be updated on new videos. Thank you.